Welcome back. Now, once your letters are dry, you can start to work on the rest of the painting. And one thing I forgot to mention, if you do have to leave your work out somewhere where you are worried that people might read these thoughts and you're not going to be getting to the next step right away, you can think about those things that you say to yourself, and you can write it just as squiggles and symbols. It doesn't have to be words necessarily that other people can read, just so long as you put the intention of it into the painting so that you know that you're changing it. This is a process for you, so if you are worried about someone else reading those thoughts, then by all means, they don't have to be technically words. So I just wanted to make a note of that because, we don't all live out in the woods by ourselves with a puppy who can't read. So the next step we're going to do, if I can find the paintbrush I want, is come here. There we go. Now, I'm going to start getting into, I think she's going to have a lot of warm colors, but she's also going to have a lot of really warm, like I love a lot of these little sparks of light and things that are happening and a lot of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a selective glaze, which is basically doing, you wet down your canvas and then do with a spray bottle or your hands with water on them, whatever works for you. And then you do a very, very light layer of your next colors, which, since mine are warm, I'm going to use cool colors like turquoises, blues, things like that. And then you're going to pull out the details again. And this time, what we're going to be working with is mixes of some of our final colors. So start to choose or blend colors that you are really feeling that you want to look at and see, that represent those changes and the calming positive influence of being able to take time for yourself. For me, I love the warm colors, but this to me is very energetic. Like if I had this up on the wall for myself, it would give me anxiety, even though I know that it's a good feeling behind the painting. So we're going to start actually going through, I'm sure within some of your visionings, there were colors that really soothed you, or there were textures, like if you were walking on grass. If you can't think of the way that looked, then think about how it felt. Did it feel soft, like it had been moist and rained recently, and it was like new grass or fresh with small blades that are like super soft and lovely? Was it a little bit rougher and possibly a darker green, indicating like a later time in the summer? Things like that. Just sort of really feel into it and kind of think about what you were feeling in your visioning, how you were feeling. And that's what we're going to start to get into in these next colors and layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint. I'm going to stop blathering on now. The puppy's snoring right next to me here, so I apologize if he's a little bit loud. We all know how he likes to sleep right there, which is very cute. Oh, he's going to go to his bed now. So I'm going to take some of this lovely turquoise, because I'm feeling, mine felt mostly like an indoor sort of visioning, although there was that tree that was growing right in the middle of the, room or whatever it was that I was in. So for me, there's going to be a little bit of night sky, but not a lot. I'm in the way. No, good. I'm trying not to be in the way, and I'm trying not to stand today so I won't cut my own head off on the video. It's actually evening where I am now, because the little man, after yesterday's full day of painting with Nicole was very perturbed with me. And anytime I even came near the studio door today, he would get very, very angry. Like, no, this is my day. I'm hanging out with you. No one else gets you. So I just kind of was like, okay then. That's what we're doing. And I'm going, you can see I'm going over the tree and everything. I'm just kind of glazing it in. Because the tree itself, I kind of feel like that's going to be something interesting as well. There's something happening with the tree that I really feel like it needs to be in there. These leaves are definitely going to be going. They were just sort of a plan for what I actually thought, because you've probably seen in some of my other paintings that I do leaves and things like that, which for me represent a lot of the natural aspects in my paintings. But I really felt that that wasn't accurate in this one, that it needed to be that tree specifically. And half of her face is going to get a nice little going over, like so. And you can still see the color in behind. It doesn't go away, it just sort of fades to the back. And I'm going to do, I'm just doing a very selective glaze. It's very light, very thin. I'm only taking a very little amount of paint on my paintbrush. But I think because of that indoor sort of pond that was happening in my dream, or in my visioning, it kind of feels as though it's more of a almost watery feeling for this painting, or at least I feel like it's going to be. And I know I'm going to be doing a different color for her, I guess language spiral, almost. I'm not sure what to call it, but the place where the words are. And that's going to be a slightly different color. You'll still see a little bit in behind of the turquoise, but I don't think, I'm not going to go too heavy with it. It's just going to be a little. So with this first layer of colors, I really want you to just sort of go in. And again, we're not planning, but we are starting to kind of think about composition a little bit. Not a lot, just a little. And I know that these flowers, they're actually going to be jasmine flowers. But they are going to be, there's going to be layers and layers and layers. And like that, that's literally what I can think of, because the smell in my vision was so strong that I can literally just feel that it would just be layers upon layers upon layers of those jasmine flowers. So that's what I'm going to get myself to do. And that's part of this whole process, is these things that make you stop and go, oh, wow, that is awesome. Or that feels really good. Or that smells really good. Whatever it is, take the time to really process that and get into how that feels. And like I said, sometimes I'll do a glaze completely over the whole thing, just a single layer, so that it almost brings the whole thing back and flattens it out a little bit. But I'm really feeling this sort of selective glaze at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I should not spray that. I sprayed everything else. So what I'm going to do is just, the places that basically feel like they're going to be darker later on, I'm just kind of going in with the turquoise and finding those places. So you can see the change in the depth already. And I think these guys are going to have some turquoise in them. This is going to have some. Almost the whole top of the painting is going to be a little bit with the turquoise, I think. turquoise for me is such a soothing color. And in my visioning, I really associated it with that little pond that the fish were in. I don't know why there were koi there. I love koi. I think they're very pretty, but I didn't make any particular sense to me whatsoever. But again, that's part of the process, is you don't necessarily know right away the why. And I think that's part of why I love it, is because you don't have to know. We're so attached to knowing. And I feel like this is going to be a little bit darker than here. So I'm just going to go ahead. Like I said, this isn't the final color yet. This is just deepening certain areas to pull them forward or put them back. And just feel into what might happen later in the painting. Feels kind of right at this point. I'm just going to do... I sort of feel like I want more turquoise up here to deepen in here, but I'm not 1,000,000% sure, so I'm just going to follow over here a little, I guess. Let's see what happens. I really like that. Okay. So that is that one. And what we can also do is, I have this really crazy feeling. Like, it's not a dead or naked tree by any means, so I'm kind of feeling like there's, I'm not kind of sure how I'm going to do these, but just kind of go in here. And they may go a little bit further back. There might be more of them. Later, there might be less. I haven't decided. But I could really smell, in the vision, I could really smell the sap of this tree. So it definitely wasn't a dead tree. It was very much alive. So it definitely needs leaves on it. But I think what I'm going to do is just put in some dark, they're not really leaf-like, they're just kind of ideas of leaves, I guess. Abstract-y kind of leaf-ish things. And again, it's just sort of it's almost like making a little mental note about what went on in your visioning. So you're kind of doing a little bit here and there. And I don't even know if the leaves will be green in the end. They could be purple. They could be any number of colors. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up. But for the moment, I'm just feeling that rich, sappy kind of color. And I will use it a couple other places as well. Since I am using it here, I'm going to use it a couple other spots too, just to do that whole artist thing and have a little bit of balance in the composition. Like I was talking about before, if you do have a color somewhere in a painting, then you want it again somewhere else at some point. A couple of different ways. They're not detailed in any way. There's nothing specific about this tree. I didn't even know what kind of tree it was. I could only really see the trunk in the building, so I don't know what kind of leaves it had. So they don't have to be perfect leafy leaves. That's not what we're going for here. Perfection is not a necessity. I really feel like this should get some of the green, which is kind of interesting. And you can see what I mean by it'll get covered up. Anything that you wrote will be covered. So you don't have to worry. It's not going to be readable later on. Like I said, unless you want it to be. But I feel, and I'm leaving some of the warm coloring behind. I'm not painting completely over it because in my mind, the entire process itself is a reminder for what I was trying to accomplish. So if I leave some of every layer a little bit visible, what happens in my mind is that it ends up feeling more as though I've kept part of and acknowledged the process. I mean, if you want to, if the words that you've used are very triggering for yourself, you can absolutely just paint totally over them and not even think about it. But for myself, I really enjoy looking back later, seeing all the positive alterations to the thought processes and all the changes to the painting itself, and knowing that I went through all of those steps in order to reach the place where the painting ended up. And I always kind of feel like if I don't have those almost visible reminders of the process itself, then I almost feel like I don't retain as much of the process. So for me, it's very much about keeping that process alive in my head. And part of it is absolutely leaving some of the layers visible in behind. But you can see how quickly the entire painting changes. And I absolutely, for me, it's part of the joy. I never try to judge what I'm creating. I never try to make it be the thing I saw in my vision, because it's going to evolve. Every time you put brush to canvas, the image that you had, either in your visioning or in what you're painting, is going to change every single time. So it ends up being a little bit more fluid almost. Okay, feeling this darker blue down here. And again, I don't know, some of the colors I didn't expect to go in with this darker blue yet. This wasn't part of my plan. But I just really felt like it needed to be there. So that's what I'm doing. It needed to come in, it needed to be drawn up into whatever is happening here. And I am going to accent a lot of these. I'm going to be pulling the images back out. That's why I say don't get too attached to the things that are in behind, because you will be painting over and you might lose some stuff. If it ends up being something that you really, really felt strongly about, you can pull it back up again. So it's not to worry. It's not going to disappear completely. You'll just end up sort of pushing it backwards a little bit. And that's fine. Doesn't hurt anything. And we spend so much time thinking, I can't go over something because it'll just disappear. And we think that anything new that we add in our lives will negate the previous thing, but that's not actually how it works. Life is built in layers, just like these paintings. And I love what's happening with these drips here, so I'm going to leave them alone, because they look like fun. I think I might do a little bit of I don't know what I want. Can't decide if I want the darker green or the darker blue. Kind of feeling the darker blue. In here, like so. In here. And every time you go up against where she is with the darker color, what it does is pull her forward, you'll notice. And so anything you go up against with a darker color is going to come forward. Anything you go up against with a lighter color is going to sort of recede. So, that one. All right, so I'm going to let that dry. And like I said, this is just sort of going in with certain colors and feeling your way. We did a selective glaze first, and then I went in with a couple more colors. I'm still only dealing with like 3 colors at a time, really. And then when this dries, we'll come back and we'll start adding in some of our symbols and we'll pull out some things that we really enjoyed that were in there, and we'll let go of some others. And we'll start working towards, I think it'll be probably maybe another couple layers, and then we'll be done. So I'll see you soon.